The relation between the object of sale and its money price could belong to this type. Perhaps they have nothing in common as regards content, and perhaps they are qualitatively so unequal that they are quantitatively incomparable. But since everything's saleable and the total amount of money together form an economic cosmos, the price of one commodity could be the appropriate price if it constitutes the same part of the total effective amount of money as does the commodity of the total amount of goods. The mutual proportionality need not depend upon the equal value of the object and the specific amount of money. The money price does not have to represent a value at all, or at least not a value in the same sense. It is only to constitute the same fraction of all money as the commodity constitutes of all commodity values. Individual economic transactions illustrate how dependent the money price of a commodity is upon its relation to a total quantity of commodities. We say that we are willing to sacrifice this money, which is rather inconvenient for us, only if we obtain a reasonable equivalent. Every reduction of that sacrifice is counted as a positive profit. But it is a profit only so far as the money can be spent on another occasion. If I had nothing else to do with the money, I would spend all the money I own unhesitatingly on the one object for which it is demanded. The appropriateness of the price means only that I, as an average person, have enough money left to buy the other things that I want. The expenditure on every single object has to be adjusted to the fact that I want to buy other objects besides. If everybody regulates his private expenditures in such a way that the payment for every type of commodity is proportionate to his total income, this means that his expenditure for the single object is related to his total expenses, just as the importance of the single object is related to the totality of desired and available objects. This scheme of the private economy of an individual is obviously not only an analogy of the general economy, its general application determines the average prices. The continuous subjective balancing precipitates the objective relation between commodity and price. This relationship depends not only upon the proportion between the total effective supply of goods and the total amount of money, but also, subject to all kinds of modifications, on the proportion between the total wants of the individual and his total available money income. Does money possess an intrinsic value? The preceding argument has not yet touched upon the question as to whether in reality money has value or not. It was only meant to show that the function of money in measuring values does not impose upon it the character of being itself a valuable object. However, the mere possibility that it does have value opens the road to understanding not only the historical development of money but, above all, its essential nature. In the primitive stages of the economy, use values appear as money, cattle, salt, slaves, tobacco, hides, etc. Whatever the way in which money has evolved, in the beginning it must have been a value experienced as such. It is possible to exchange the most valuable things against a printed form only when the chain of purposes is very extensive and reliable and provides us with a guarantee that what is immediately valueless will help us to acquire other values. It is in this manner that one can carry out a series of logical deductions, through impossible or contradictory stages, to a valid and binding conclusion, but only when the process of thought is assured of its direction and its correctness. Primitive and still vacillating thinking would immediately lose its direction at one of the intermediate stages, and it has. Therefore, to exercise its functions in statements each of which has to be concrete and obviously correct, at the cost of being less versatile and less comprehensive in its goals. Similarly, the extension of the succession of values by valueless things enormously increases their range and usefulness, yet is possible only with a growing intellectuality of individuals and with the continued organization of the group. Nobody will be stupid enough to exchange a value against something that is valueless, unless he is sure of being able to convert the latter into values again. Exchange was at first necessarily exchange in kind, an exchange between direct values. One assumes that objects that were frequently exchanged and circulated because of their general desirability, and the value of which in relation to other objects was therefore frequently measured, were psychologically most suited to become general standards of value. Apparently in direct contrast with the earlier result, according to which money as such does not have to be of value, we discover here that the most needed and the most valuable object is apt to become money. I do not mean needed in the physiological sense. For instance, the desire for adornment can play a dominant role among the experienced necessities. Indeed, we are told that for primitive people the adornment of their bodies, and the objects used for it, are more valuable than all the things that we consider so much more urgent. The necessity of things is for us only an emphasis that our sentiments attribute to objects that are in themselves equivalent or neutral and depends entirely upon our purposes. Thus, we cannot calculate theoretically what are the values that are immediately urgent and fit to play the function of money. The only indispensable assumption seems to me that the money character is originally attached to those objects that show a particular frequency of exchange against a variety of other things as a result of experienced necessity. Money could not have developed as a means of exchange or as a measure of value unless its material substance had been experienced as immediately valuable. At the present time, by comparison, money is no longer valuable because its substance is regarded as a necessity, an indispensable value. No European today regards a coin as valuable because it can be changed into a piece of jewelry. The present-day value of money cannot be traced to its value as metal, precious, because precious metals are available in too great quantities to find it profitably used merely for adornment and for technical purposes. The completion of the process conceived by the theory concerning the value of money as a metal would result in such a multitude of objects made of precious metal that their value would be reduced to a minimum. The valuation of money, because of the possibility of converting it into other objects, is possible only to the extent that this does happen or happens only on a very small scale. Even though at the beginning of the development, i.e., when there is a limited supply of precious metals, the value of money may have been determined by its alternative use for adornment, this condition disappears as production is increased. This argument is further supported by the fact that, although primitive people regard a particular style of self-adornment as a vital necessity, the subsequent elaboration of scales of value actually places this interest in the category of the dispensable or superfluous. In modern culture, adornment does not at all play the social role that we discover with amazement in ethnological and even in medieval accounts. This fact must also contribute to reducing the significance of money based upon the substance of which it is made. It may be said that the value of money moves increasingly from its terminus a quo to its terminus ad quem, and that metal money stands on an equal basis with paper money as a result of the growing psychological indifference to its value as metal. It would be wrong to consider the valuelessness of paper money as irrelevant on the grounds that it is simply a draft upon metal. This is refuted by the fact that unsecured paper money is still valued as money. Even if one points to the political force which alone imposes the current rate of exchange of paper money, this means precisely that other reasons besides direct material use can give, and actually do give, money value to a particular substance.